Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 3 here on the Days of Horror YouTube channel, in which we travel into the unknown world. And tonight we have a very special guest on board who is going to talk to us, or talk to you guys, all about a true crime that is still unsolved today, even though it occurred back in 1912 over in Iowa. It's a barbaric story. It's graphic in detail, so be prepared for that. I've got to warn you about that. But like I said, it is still unsolved, and to this day people are still visiting the actual house where these murders took place. 1, just to absorb the history. 2, for the paranormal aspect of it all. But 3, because of a morbid curiosity. And a bit like over in the United Kingdom when we talk about Jack the Ripper and we visit Whitechapel down in London. It's all about the mystique of it all and the unknown of it all, and trying to fit the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together ourselves to try to make sense of the murders. So sit back guys, get yourselves a drink, and hopefully you will love this as what I'm about to do. Because tonight, my friends, we are going to be interviewing Johnny HOUSER from over in Villisca, where the Villisca Axe Murders took place, like I said, back in 1912. Welcome, Johnny, to the Days of Horror Unknown World segment of our channel here on YouTube. Really good to see you and to speak to you tonight. We've got quite a few questions regarding the Villisca Axe murders, but more importantly, it's about the house itself and how it's come to be what it is today after all the, it was over 100 years now since the murders. You know, so there's a few questions we're going to ask you, and nothing tricky. It's all everything you I think you spoke about with other YouTubers and other radio podcasts and things like that you've done. So there's nothing you've not heard before, I don't think.
Right.
But yeah, welcome for coming anyway.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Brilliant. So the first one I've got to ask you, obviously, is your association with the house, because we'll get to the crimes shortly, but your association with the house and how you became involved with this famous location.
It's a really weird and long story. So my mom keeps all these photographs in her photo albums, chronological order, and is about 20 some years ago, I went down to her house and I'm looking at all these photos and I see a picture of the Axe Murder House.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, what's this about? And she looks at the back of it. She goes, oh yeah, you're about 10 or 11 years old and you insisted we drive by the house so you could take a picture of it.
Right.
So I was obsessed with it at 10 or 11. I don't
Really?
remember taking this.
Yeah, really.
First job I ever had was digging graves at a cemetery. Lived in several haunted houses. I end up in Villisca, end up working at the Axe Murder House. The house next door comes open. I end up moving in there. So it's, I say there's haunted houses and haunted people. It's almost like the house chose me.
Yeah.
To be, which is, it sounds totally crazy.
It's like a calling, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like the idea that I would end up in Villisca, Iowa is so far out there and so crazy that I can't even, it's like, and here I am.
Yeah.
And
it must feel surreal, and I wouldn't say strange because obviously you're used to it now, but there must be still some kind of excitement in you, the fact that where you work contains so much history.
Right. Yeah, I've been here about 20 years. And, the excitement I feel from people coming to take tours and wondering what the story is and talking with people on who they think did it and, investigating the haunting part of it. It's just, I remember what 9 to 5 was like, and I don't want to go back to that. So I'm very happy here.
That's me at the moment, 9 to 5.
Right.
It's, so I guess then you never get tired of talking about this case that we're going to talk about, and you know what I mean? Do you ever kind of think, same questions, here we go again?
Yeah, you know, sometimes I go to work and I'm like, I don't want to go answer questions about the Axe Murder House. And then instantly I check myself with, oh, you poor baby. Your job's so hard, so
Yeah,
terrible, you know?
yeah, yeah. And do what do you think it is about this crime in particular? I mean, I'm asking that based on, in England, as you know, we've got Jack the Ripper in
Mhm.
London. You know, I won't say similar type of story; it's completely different. But obviously, there's some similarities in the fact that Jack the Ripper was never identified, and for over 100 years, people have wrote books. They've been down to Whitechapel. They've investigated it themselves, and this enigma of who this person was, it still lasts to this very day. I mean, just behind me, I've got books galore on Jack the Ripper. I must have about 24 books on
Mhm.
Jack the Ripper. I'm a big fan of the story, and I know it's a bit morbid, but what do you think it is about the Villisca Axe murder? Do you think it's the same? It's this enigma, or
Yeah, I mean, we don't know who did it. Everybody loves a mystery,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
unfortunately. And I think with this, 6 of the people murdered were little kids.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just you just don't mess with little kids. Little kids are off limits for everything.
yeah,
I think that adds the extra just you know, like
yeah,
I
for
wish
sure.
I could figure out who did it.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, which I'll be surprised there won't be too many that don't know the story, but here in England, I personally know about the story, not obviously not as in depth as yourself, but for those who don't know the actual story of the Villisca Axe murders, could you sum it up? Obviously, because it's a big story, could you sum it up quickly for our viewers, and we can talk about it in depth after that?
Yeah, absolutely. June 9th, 1912, town of Villisca had a church service, which got over about 10 p.m. as like an end of Bible school event. The Moores come home with Ina and Lena Stillinger, who are just 2 friends of the family.
Yeah,
Next day, the neighbor, Mary Peckham, noticed something was up, so she gets a relative to check on them. They find Ina and Lena downstairs. The authorities find the Moores up. So you got 8 total, 6 kids, sadly, 2 adults.
yeah,
Everyone's in bed. Mirrors were covered with sheets, food at the table where this person made a meal
mm,
afterwards. Bloody water, cigarette butts, footprints, all destroyed by the town
yeah,
walking through the house. And that started a 5-year witch hunt. You know, it's 5 years of gossip in a small town about a murder. We have
yeah,
no idea who did it. It's Iowa's oldest cold case.
yeah. Like I said, there was, as you just said, there was plenty of potential suspects, wasn't there, at the time? But going to the murders themselves and, you know, how it all evolved, because I believe it happened in the late hours, early morning, in a time period, in a window, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So the time of death by the medical examiner was he would lift their arm and time how long it took to drop, like a rigor mortis test.
yeah, yeah,
And he said it probably happened between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Which so last night. You know,
yeah, yeah,
nailed
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And you know, and like the murders themselves, I mean, they were so barbaric, wasn't there? And
Yeah.
what I'll do, like I said before, obviously all this goes live, and I'll pre-warn you know our subscribers that this is a graphic story. But like I said, obviously the title is going to be the Villisca Axe Murders, and
Mhm.
axe being the weapon of choice in this, wasn't it?
Right.
But it was the severity, wasn't it, of some of the, is it especially the adults? They seem to have been attacked more ferociously than what the children were.
The dad for sure had it the worst.
Yeah,
His head was just crushed completely. So they were not hit with the sharp edge of the axe. It was the blunt part.
the back of it.
Yeah, the
Right.
back of the axe.
Yeah,
So their heads were just crushed completely.
yeah,
Um, the dad is going to take a lot more blows than sadly a 5-year-old, which is just disgusting to even think
yeah,
about.
yeah.
But they were, although the mother had some blows with the sharp edge of the
Right.
axe.
Okay.
So the according to the coroner's report, it said it looked like her head was just sliced into slices.
So it's brutal. Brutal.
Which, if you come out of the attic, which a lot of people think the killer came out of the attic, hit the dad with the blunt end, just a boom, to
Mm-hmm.
incapacitate him. Then you consciously flip the axe around to the sharp edge to get the mom.
Yeah.
Why is she different? Is she the target? Like, why is she singled out
Yeah.
differently from everyone else?
Yeah. I mean, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it kind of has the Amityville murders
Yes.
similarities, doesn't it? How, and you've probably been asked this many, many times, probably thousands of times, but I mean, one of the things that I've always thought about this case is obviously, like you said, if the two adults were targeted first, then you've only got children to deal with, which obviously an adult, or if there's more than one, you probably could kind of restrain them, if that makes sense, quickly. But there's so many people in the house, like the Amityville one, but yet all the bodies were found in beds still, weren't they? Like they were asleep, I presume.
Just like they went to bed. And
Yeah.
go even further, Reverend Kelly, the only guy that was ever tried for any of this, said a shadow gave him the weapon, told him to kill, felt like he was being led beyond his own control.
Yeah.
So if you flash forward to Ronald DeFeo,
Yeah.
one of his first confessions was a shadow told him to kill, felt like it's almost identical.
Yeah.
You know, he's changed it a million times since then, but 8 people murdered, nobody wakes up. 6 people murdered with a rifle,
Yeah.
nobody wakes up. And
Yeah.
cops were saying, "Oh, it was thundering that night." Thunder sounds nothing like a rifle going off.
Yeah, going off, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's be real.
But it's like the I don't know how true this is. I mean, you'll be able to put me right, but I was reading today that one of the Stillinger girls, was she found in a different position, like she was trying to defend herself or something. She had a mark on her arm, like a self-defense wound or something. So she might be the only one.
She had her arm was up like this, and her leg was kind of cocked off the bed.
Right.
They thought it was a defensive wound. Later, when they took the bodies to prep them for burial, they wiped them clean. It was just blood. It just wiped right off.
Ah, right. So there's no wound.
And so that's a common misconception.
Right.
That's,
okay.
You know, as well as the sexual assault on one of the, like, none of that happened.
Yeah. So it's just brute force murder, wasn't it?
Right. Exactly.
But like you said, I mean, like I said, you've probably been asked this many times, but it's the fact, like you said, that so many people I mean, I've looked at photos and videos online of the Villisca house, and it does look, from my side, it looks quite small. So such a small unit, but yet so much bloodshed,
right?
You know, and then you've got your neighbours' houses, I would presume, which were quite close.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any talk of neighbours hearing any screams or any noises as such?
So Margaret Landers lived across the street, and she was kind of the town busybody.
Yeah.
And she would say, "Oh, I was followed home by a mysterious figure that night." It's like,
right.
What does that look like? Tall, short, man, woman? You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
She also said she saw Albert Jones, son of F.F. Jones, the state senator, pick up the axe the night before and go, "Yeah, this will work." When pressed further, she'd be like, "No, I didn't see that."
Yeah.
However, Mary Peckham, I live in her house, which is
right
next door.
Yeah.
And the fact that she didn't hear or see anything, I call no way, no chance. Like, I can sit over in my house with the windows shut and hear people dinging on the piano at the Axe House. There's something with the acoustics.
Yeah.
Places that.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, like I said, you know, I don't want to keep comparing the two, but it does seem such a very difficult prospect to process, how all this crime can be committed and yet nobody heard anything. And
right.
I mean, do you believe it was just one person? Do you think there might be more than one person who committed these horrific crimes?
I think it was just one person, because
you do.
When you get more than one, somebody runs their mouth.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
If it was a robbery or anything like that, I would say more than one person, but just a murder, I think it was just one person went in there, went crazy, killed everyone, walked out.
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, now obviously that brings us to, like, motive, doesn't it? You know, I mean, I've read quite a few stories, and, you know, one of them, it could have been the stepbrother, maybe, who did it because he had a bit of a issue with, is it Josiah? I think it was called.
Yep.
Then obviously there's again, I've got his name, I've wrote it down somewhere. Was it Frank Jones?
Right.
Who had issues because he thought Josiah had taken business away from his own business, but it seems a bit how can I put it, brutal, to wipe out an entire family just over minor things, if that makes sense.
So the FF Jones, the Frank Jones thing sounds good on the internet and sounds good on paper, but until you live here and know people that knew Jones, so he come here from New York City, and he took over collections at the bank. And before him, it was maybe next year's crops will be better. And Jones said, no, you're paying what you owe, or I'm taking your collateral.
Yeah.
Which is how it's done today, but it wasn't done that way in Villisca 100 years ago. So this guy makes a fortune. He builds the biggest house in town, and all the farmers in town thought that was him flaunting that in their faces.
Right.
So they hated this guy from day one. So the idea of this farm implement store, he was also president of the bank, state senator. Joe started his own store. That's true.
Yeah.
He took his John Deere dealership, but John Deere in 1912 was failing. They were the only company that didn't have a tractor. They were still doing hand plows.
Right.
So Joe started his own business and took his worst franchise. None of that went anywhere.
Yeah.
The only one that ever went anywhere was Reverend Kelly.
Right.
The crazy minister who confessed to it. But he was acquitted of all charges.
He was he rearrested back 5 years after the events? So he was charged twice, wasn't he? One at the time and one, was it 5 years later? And he admitted to it, but then rescinded his admission or something?
So the murders happened, and Kelly didn't confess to it till 1918.
Right.
And he said that voices told him, rise, Peter Slay, and he went for a walk, and a shadow came out of the backyard and handed him the axe, and he followed the shadow in the house and felt like he's led beyond his own control, and voices said slay it early, and he killed everyone.
Yeah.
Then he wanted to be put in a mental home, and the cops are like, we're not going to make you any promises. As soon as he said that, and the cops said, we're not going to make you promises, they recanted all that, because he knew if he was going to go to jail, he'd be killed for hurting kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then he said he didn't do it. Then he said he's a detective for the Queen of England. Like,
yeah, he's. But he also, for people who don't know, again, you're the expert on this. I've read several articles. Even today, I was reading. And some articles like put him down as some kind of peeping Tom and a pervert, asking young girls to strip for him. Yep. So, like you said, he does come across as a quite a serious suspect, doesn't he? In this crime,
right? He was. He has more red flags than anyone. Like, of all the suspects, he was here that night. Yeah. We know that for a fact. He was 2 blocks up the street. He confessed to it. He turned in a bloody shirt to be dry cleaned. He told people on the train before they found the bodies. He comes back inserting himself into the investigations like he's some sort of detective.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just red flag 101 with this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pity back then they didn't have DNA, isn't it, really? Because it would have been sorted. Well, I say it would have been sorted easily, but we haven't touched upon it yet. But from all accounts, within maybe a few hours, there was hundreds of people, weren't they, going into the house to have a look at the bodies, and so obviously everything was contaminated at that point, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So the town reports say half of the town was in the house. So half of the town at that time was 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Half of the town would be 2,000 people. Let's just say it was 1,000 people. That is an enormous amount of people in the house.
Yeah.
Pushing, shoving, trying to go through windows. National Guard got called to the house, and they created a human perimeter where they locked arms and made like a fence around it to get everybody out. And then that night they took the bodies up to the armory.
Yeah. And is it true that people are also allowed to hold the axe?
Yeah.
You know, it's some kind of show to say, look, this is the weapon, and you know, it just seems really quite a bizarre thing to happen, doesn't it?
So the women knew Sarah was a meticulous housekeeper, so they started wiping up the blood. They're like, Sarah would never want anyone to see this. The
Yeah,
men are grabbing the axe, going, "Look at that! That was
yeah.
left." You know.
I mean,
um,
it's just, you know, I mean, I know things are different, obviously, between now and what it was over 100 years ago. I mean, police would have surrounded the house, they would have cordoned it all off. People would have been, you know, police officers would be on the porch doorways now, wouldn't they, and stopping anybody going in. But yeah, I mean, it's totally different times. But going back to, like I said, the murders, and like we were talking about the ferocity of it all, and it sounds like I'm trying to glorify it when I'm not. But I mean, the facts are there, and you've also got in the house, haven't you,
mhm.
proof of this ferocity even now? Because apparently there's marks in the walls, isn't there, from where the axe itself has struck
Oh
from
yeah.
lifting it and swinging it down.
So as he's hitting him with the blunt and the blade's back, as he's coming up like that, he's chopping into the ceiling, the side of the wall. All those marks are still there.
Yeah, yeah. And is that something? Is that something you consciously don't cover over now? Do you leave it there as a, I don't know, I don't know
Yeah,
what word it is, but
for sure. Leave it there as a reminder because
yeah,
people that come to this place need to know that this really happened.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
an axe mark from what this monster did in here.
yeah, yeah. And again, I've only looked at photographs because unfortunately, this moment in time, I can't be there as much as I'd love to. I'd get on a plane tonight and get over if I could. But apparently, the actual loft, or you know, where we think the killer may have come from, it's just directly opposite one of the bedrooms, isn't it? It's not like it's above. It's same. Is it the same level as the bedroom?
Exactly. It's just like looks like a closet, and there's a little door inside the closet. You
Yeah,
open that, and it goes to a big open spot. So we say attic, but it's not up above. It's even with the second
yeah.
floor.
Yeah. So that would have been fairly easy then, wouldn't it, for the killer to sneak
Oh,
out and do what he did?
for sure. If he was hiding in there, it's about 5 feet from the exit of that door to the parents' room,
So
where he
it's
could
that close.
boom, boom.
Yeah.
Um, At the top of the steps, right by the parents' bed, there's a big pool of blood, and detectives said he basked in his fiendish glory, which I
Right.
don't think that's what happened. I think he boom, boom on the parents, walked to the staircase and heard something and just froze as the
Right.
ripped off
Yeah.
the box. Then maybe got the kids, the two downstairs, went back, got them again, upstairs again, downstairs again.
Right. Yeah, because I was about to ask you that because again, all I've read, all I can go off is what I've been reading. But apparently some say that he may have gone downstairs, killed the children, and then gone back upstairs to finish the job off with the adults. Is that
Right.
something you think is plausible?
Oh, for sure. Sarah Moore had two shoes at the foot of the bed. And when they found them, there was blood dried inside the shoe and blood under the shoe. It was on its side.
Yeah, yeah.
So they think when he hit him the first time, the dad's arm was kind of hanging off the bed. Blood dripped into his hand, into her shoe. When he came back the second time, he knocked the shoe over, causing the blood under the shoe to dry.
Right, right. On what I mean, again, people may not know, especially again here in the UK, but what is this thing I keep reading about? Is it a £4 block of bacon? What's this about? Is that true?
So there was bacon. I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of people because there's so many theories about the bacon being a sexual this and that. So Sarah Moore used to cure bacon,
Right.
and back then you'd rub it down with salt, wrap it in cheesecloth, put it in a dark place to cure for 30 days, which she used the downstairs closet in the kids' room,
Right. Okay.
which is where it was found.
But
That's it.
and that's, because I was probably reading too much into it this afternoon. I was reading and I'm thinking, was it some kind of innuendo? Like, I won't swear, but like a bit of an FU to the adults in the house. You know,
Yeah.
what did he drag it out? And because bacon and it's pig, I'm thinking, was he basically mocking people, saying they were pigs? I
No.
don't know. I might have just been reading too much into that. I don't
Oh,
know.
and I went down that rabbit hole myself. And then finally I'm like, I have to figure this out. I have to figure
Yeah,
out
yeah,
what the bacon was.
yeah.
And the original coroner report, before any of the people were in there, it was leaned up against the closet wrapped in cheesecloth.
Right.
And which is what she did, you
Yeah.
know.
So there's absolutely nothing in the bacon at all. It was
No,
just what it
and
was.
it wasn't until about 10 years ago I started seeing online about this weird sexual angle with the bacon. I'm like, what? Like, where is that coming from?
Fake news 10 years ago.
Right, right.
Right? And like I say, I mean, the murders themselves, I mean, horrific. But again, I keep saying it, I can only go off what I've read. But apparently the killer, he also did he use the undergarments or the garments to cover the mirrors and put over the windows.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
the windows I can kind of understand because
Mhm.
obviously it blocks out from being seen inwards. But I don't understand the mirror being covered. What do you think that was about?
So you got two different theories. The old superstition of souls being trapped in mirrors,
Right,
which is still a thing in Villisca today. At the senior center, the old folks' home, if a patient passes away, they'll cover the mirrors and open the window.
right, okay,
But also, you got the forensics idea of killers don't want to look at themselves as being a killer.
right,
They don't want to see their reflection covered in blood and have to face what they really are,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
usually indicating they know the people.
right. I was about to say, do you think it's because they knew the people? I won't say closely, but they most certainly knew he knew the victims.
So this seems like a very personal crime
Yeah,
to hit somebody in the head 20 times with an axe.
mm,
Seems pretty personal. So it is either personal or the guy's a complete psychopath.
yeah,
One of
yeah.
the two. I usually tell people with the mirrors that you just can't rationalize crazy.
No,
It meant
no,
something to this person. It could have been the seeing the reflection. It could have been the ghost. It could have been something completely wacky out of
yeah,
left field that we've never. It meant something to them, but who knows what.
yeah. I mean, the thing that always again fascinates me with it with this crime, it was so barbaric. I would imagine, and again, it's going to sound like I'm glorifying it. I'm trying not to, trying to find the right words. But I would presume there would have been a lot of blood, and
Mhm.
I presume that the killer himself may be covered in blood. So I'm thinking, how has he managed to leave the house and go about his business, and nobody's actually seen anything? You know, especially the blood on him, because it wouldn't just be his hands he could wash in his face. I presume his clothes would have been pretty much saturated.
For sure. Each backswing
Yeah,
at the
it's
axe. I
splattered.
mean, and at one point in the kids' room, there was horizontal blood splatter where it looked like he took the axe and just waved it around
Flinging it.
like this.
Right.
And so a lot of people think he did it naked
Oh,
and
right.
left his
Okay.
clothes by the back door. But if that's the case, this is somebody that's done this before.
Yes, and he's got very, very clear thinking.
Yeah, because a
Yeah,
normal person's not going to be thinking, I need to take my clothes off because there's going to be blood splatter.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's just,
yeah. So, like you said, so with I mean, I know serial killing has killed 8 people in the house, but I'm thinking more. Did I get that right? Did I say 8 people? Yeah,
yep.
8 victims. Sorry, yeah, I was thinking of children as well. 6, but yeah, it's 8. Um, but like you said, to kill so many people in one location, such as the Villisca house, is a serial killer as it is. But like you've just said, to have that kind of forward planning, taking clothes off, if he did indeed do that, he's done it. He's done it before, which then brings me on to not too much story, but there was murders, wasn't there, a few years before, similar to the Villisca Axe murders?
Yeah, a lot of murders on Sunday evenings.
Yeah,
A lot of weapons of opportunity being weapons found on the property, axes,
there were
sledgehammers.
axes were common, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah, oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um, and there's a great book called The Man from the Train that really delves into that. However, um, Colorado Springs, Paola, Kansas, Monmouth, Illinois, all these other towns that had similar murders. Law enforcement knew about this when
Right.
Villisca happened, and
Yeah.
they all came here to have a 3-day meeting with law enforcement in Villisca to see if it was all connected, and they left going, probably not.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a gut punch for me because I was really big on that scenario. And I'm like, oh, they must have missed something. Then I thought, well, they were there. You obviously missed something, Johnny. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it, if you could come across that little nugget even now with yourself and to prove conclusively who actually committed these crimes. But it's like here, Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've got about 24 books behind me on the subject. Every single book's got a different suspect.
And over here, they say maybe H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, okay, guys, like we got to stop with same with the Man from the Train and the Villisca thing. Like,
yeah.
I know the lady that wrote the thesis on that, which the book was made after. She doesn't believe that it was connected.
No.
It was just a cool idea for her.
Yeah. But like I said, I think, people say time's a healer and eventually the truth will come out. But I think the longer it goes on, the Villisca, the Jack the Ripper, some of H.H. Holmes, I think there's more victims than what we know about. But I think Jack the Ripper and the Villisca ones, these two crazy, criminals, that's what I think they were crazy, but smart with it. And I honestly don't believe we'll ever solve it, either of them. It's been so long now, and it's I don't know, they're just so bizarre, scary, true stories, aren't they?
It's scary to think that this really happened.
Yeah.
Maybe H.H. Holmes committed the Villisca Axe murders, then went over to England and was maybe that's it.
Honestly,
one person.
So some of the theories over here with Jack, it's incredible. It really is, But I still buy the books and I still read the stories and I still get involved with it, because it's just one of those subjects, pretty much like the Villisca Axe murders.
Yeah.
So the house now, like you said, it's open for tourists to come and view, and obviously the question I'm going to come to now because of the brutality. And I was speaking to a gentleman last night called Richard Felix, and he's got a lot of theories on the paranormal side of things, and especially when people die suddenly. Because, and again, I don't want to go over it too much and bore you, but he believes in like the energy that we all have. This is what keeps us going. That energy is suddenly, boom, it's transported out the body at that moment of death. And he thinks, obviously, when it's a sudden death, that energy has to go somewhere. And we were talking about haunted places, haunted houses, haunted objects. And he believes, like I do kind of thing, that when there's a sudden death, such as the Villisca Axe murders, maybe that energy could be trapped in a moment in time in those bedrooms. So the question, this is what I'm coming around to, is the Villisca Axe house murder, or the house itself, is it haunted? Do you think it's haunted?
It is, but it's not what you think it is.
Okay.
So, and when I came here 20 years ago, I'm a history guy, true crime nerd.
Yeah.
The ghost stuff wasn't a thing for me. And in fact, I was like, oh, give me a break. I'm 100% a believer now after being here for 20 years. There's just things I've seen that should not happen.
Yeah.
But what those are has nothing to do with a little kid from 1912. So this is very typical. Had a guy, he gets by himself, gets an EVP of a woman saying a woman's name on his digital recorder. And I listened to it and I'm like, that name doesn't ring a bell historically. He said, no, that was his girlfriend's name 33 years ago in Texas, who's still alive, and she's still alive. Like, okay. So next day, some YouTubers from Maryland, name from their past, super personal to them, to me, that's something in the house going, I know everything about you, and I want you to know I know everything
Right.
about you.
Yeah.
There's something very sinister and dark in the house
Right.
that
And
has
and and like you say, you've obviously felt it, haven't you, yourself? Does it ever
it's
scare you? Do you ever, you know, because obviously I presume you're in the house daily, aren't you? That is your job now. But when you're in on your own in the house, do you ever like kind of look over your shoulder or look behind you and feel like you're being watched or anything like that?
oh, for sure. But at this point, I have, as crazy as I sound saying this, like I feel like I have a relationship with the house.
Right. Okay.
Like I got to work here. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. But when you go back, there's no Villisca anywhere on planet Earth. We
No.
are the only Villisca anywhere.
Yeah.
The name means nothing. It's Waliska, which is Meskwaki or Sac and Fox for evil spirit.
Right.
So
Okay.
this whole area was a Native American burying ground.
Yeah.
So who even knows what's happening
Mm.
on the property, in the house, you name it. I just do my thing and I let it do its thing, and hopefully it leaves me alone.
You kind of both work together with it, don't you?
We got to work together.
Yeah. And what's the? I mean, I'm sorry, like I said, if you've been asked these many times before, I presume you have. But and what is the story with the one guy that came into the house and again, to our reviewers, it is quite graphic, but he stabbed himself, didn't he? This one person.
Yeah.
What was that? What was all that about?
He walked in. He had a hunting knife on his belt, which was, yay big.
Yeah.
Had camouflage pants. I thought, well, it's Iowa. It's kind of normal attire around here. I go to bed. I wake up the next day and I'm tagged in a million things. A man stabs himself at Axe Murder House. And my honest thought was, sucks to be Lizzie Borden's place right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then I read and I'm like, Villisca. I'm like, what? So, he was life flighted out of here to Creighton and Omaha. He took that. He was provoking down on the downstairs bed, took the knife and went right through his chest. He doesn't remember anything.
I was just about to say, do you think, I mean, again, do you think that could be the power of the house itself and obviously the history behind it, which kind of messed with his head? I'm not saying it was possessed, but do you think?
Absolutely do. The guy's as normal as can be. Everybody online, oh, he's crazy. He stabbed himself 40 times in the stomach in the head. Yeah. I was here. I know the guy. I talked to him. I checked him in.
Yeah.
I was as normal as can be. And
that's another little part of history for that house, isn't it? It's not just the Villisca murders, it's what happened all these years later.
And this guy didn't say a thing to anyone for like 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And then finally, Kindred Spirits, the TV show, brought him back down here to tell his side of the story. And the guy's not in it for money. I mean, he hasn't got anything from it. What would he get from it? He finally just let it out what happened. And I sat here while this guy cried on my shoulder for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's another little bizarre story to the Villisca Axe, isn't it? The Axe Murder House. But, just quickly, while we're talking about the house itself, because like I said, these murders took place 1912, so well over 100 years ago. Mm. What's the timeline of the house kind of been over the years? Has it always been a private residence, or was it left abandoned at any time and now taken over?
So the bank offered 6 months free rent for anyone that would move in.
Right. Okay.
John Geisman stayed one night in the house, slept in the barn, which is what I'm in right now.
Yeah.
Afterwards, left his wife and kids in there, but he wanted nothing to do with it.
Mm.
Homer Rittner and his wife moved in the 1920s. They left claiming to hear footsteps. The wife said she saw a silhouette holding an axe.
And then you walk out.
Right. In the 1930s, they were doing seances, trying to find the killer that route during the big spiritualist movement.
Yeah.
In the 1960s, a family bought it. No one in town told them what happened here when they purchased the home.
Right.
And they left in the middle of the night, did the big cliche, leave half their stuff. They were gone.
Yeah.
And then a family lived here 18 years and said nothing ever happened, which I don't doubt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're a ghost, like in the infinite beyond, then time is a construct of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's 18 years? 2 seconds?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. I mean, we've got our own haunted or so-called haunted places in the UK, as you're probably aware. You know, we've got a lot of history.
Oh, yeah.
Myself and my wife were going to a place called the Ancient Ram Inn. It's an old,
Oh, yeah. Yes.
it's an old pub here in the UK.
That's iconic. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going there on Thursday this week. It's a 3.5-hour drive for us, but I'm really looking forward to it. We've never been before. We've always wanted to go, but it's always been such a hard task to get in because of the waiting list.
Yes.
We found it, but it's just the two of us now. A lot of people, especially in the UK, we're very cynical people, and a lot of people over here say it's a money-making racket. There's no such thing as ghosts. It's not haunted. There's no paranormal. Prove there's ghosts. And I always say, and I said it last night, be open-minded. You know, this thing, and this is why we're doing these set of interviews with some really fantastic people like yourself called The Unknown World, because I believe there's a lot of unknown things out there. And speaking to people like you, who are, and like I said, you live, you breathe, and you're in that area. You know what I mean? Right. You've got to be open-minded. And I always say that, does it matter if a place makes money because it could be haunted? Doesn't matter how much it makes. That's irrelevant. Doesn't stop it being haunted. And I presume it's a bit like the Villisca Axe Murder House. Obviously, we know what happened there, and that is factual. There's no getting away from that. But if people ever said to you, oh, there's no ghosts here and this, that, the other, I mean, I presume you just let that go over your shoulders, do you?
You know, when Darwin Lynn bought the place, the town was going to bulldoze it. And he bought it just to go with his museum to be like, do school tours once a year.
Yeah.
People asked to stay the night, and he said, why in the world would you want to stay the night? And they're like, paranormal investigating. I asked him why he said yes. He goes, when you get old, it's just more fun to say yes. But then he goes, we're not going to advertise this. Yeah. I go, what? He goes, it'll just be what it is. Yeah. All the TV shows that have been here, it's all word of mouth.
Yeah.
People uploading videos. And, you know, it's horrible what happened, but especially in the United States, I've never been anywhere over here where they go, this is where happy things happened.
No.
Gettysburg, no. Salem, Trail of Tears, plantations, like it's all terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's weird, isn't it, that like for us, me and my wife, we set up our channel 3 years ago now to cover local stories, true crime mainly, and things that were happening on our doorstep. So we don't have famous people, we don't have any famous cases like the Villisca one or Jack the Ripper, because we live in the north of England, in the northwest. But we have a lot of interesting local stories. But it's kind of a morbid curiosity, and I think every single human being has that. So, you know, people ask me, why do you like covering stories such as what we're talking about tonight, and such as Jack the Ripper, and such as the local murders that have happened on your doorstep? You know, what is it? And I just say, it's a morbid curiosity that we've all got.
Yeah, for sure.
No matter what, we've all got it, haven't we? It's, you know, it's a bit bizarre when you think about it.
And a lot of people that have that curiosity become forensics experts or detectives or and save a lot of lives. So
yeah, they do. I mean, going back to your house as well, speaking of which, before I forget, again, here in the UK, we've had a lot of famous cases, and what we found in the UK is, and I don't know why we do this, to be quite honest, but we bulldoze the buildings where these things happened. Like you were saying, they nearly bulldozed the Villisca house. Over here, we do that, and I kind of sort of understand, but then I think, but why? Why are we doing it? We've got the Fred and Rosemary West murders that took place down like southern England, and children were involved with that. Now, okay, they were a bit older than what these children were in the Axe Murder House, but as soon as it all unravelled, and as soon as the parents were arrested, and they found the victims' bodies in the walls, in the basements, they bulldozed the house, and it's now a walkway you can actually walk through. It's like a public land now. And I just don't understand why we do this with these places, because that is as much as we don't like it, that is history, isn't it? These things happened. Can't get away from that.
Yeah, I mean, it happened. I think it makes the people bulldozing it feel better about themselves.
But the thing is, saying that, again, people like ourselves, me and my wife, we're going to the ancient Ram Inn, and where this happened, the Rosemary Rest one, it's literally about an hour's deviation away from where we're going. So we said on the way back home on Friday, we might stop off and do a story about that one while we're there. So even though you can knock these places down, people are still visiting it to retell the stories.
Right.
You know,
it's not doing anything.
No, not really. Not really. You know, because you're still there. You're still there where it happened. You know, but
and like here, you know, one of the neighbors across the street said, all that place is anymore is families doing things together. I said, what do you mean? He goes, every day I see grandma and grandpa, grandkids, all touring the house. None of them are on their phones.
Yeah.
They're all having fun. He goes, it's horrible, but they're making memories together, which is amazing.
Exactly.
You know, it's like if you can turn a terrible thing into a positive, that's great.
No, exactly. And as for the Moore family, the poor Moore family, and the two young girls, the friends, they're buried, aren't they? Close by now. They're not too far away from
local cemetery.
Yeah. Because again, we've seen photos online and the odd video. So you know, I mean, I presume people still go to this day, do they put flowers down and pay the respects?
Their headstones are the most decorated in the entire cemetery,
which is nice. That's nice. Yeah.
Full of teddy bears and flowers, and people put coins down, and you know, it's nice to see.
And it always hits home more, like you said at the very, very start, that obviously with children being involved, it always seems to be a bit more powerful, doesn't it? Because we covered a story of a young girl called Emily Holland, one of the very first stories we covered, and this happened in 1873 or 1876. I always get mixed up with them 2 years, but we covered the story a few years ago. And every time we go to her grave now over in Blackburn, the town of Blackburn, there's always a teddy bear and maybe some fresh flowers. But the grave is always immaculate and maintained even over 100 years later. You know, and it's this children thing, isn't it? You know, it's sad. It really is sad.
And you know, like some people say you die 3 times. The first time's when you die, the second time's when your body decomposes, and the final time is when someone says your name for the last time ever.
Yeah.
And these people, these kids deserve to live on. They deserve to laugh and love and have their own kids and fall in love and like simple pleasures.
Yeah. Create memories
of them.
Yeah.
So the least we can do is keep saying their name.
Yeah. Yeah. And as morbid as it is, by retelling the story, at least the names are still being told, aren't they?
Yeah. And maybe in doing that, I can light the fire under some young mind to go into law enforcement and solve one crime from happening.
Exactly. And before we go, I've got to ask you about the axe itself. Is it still in a museum or is it in the house?
It's in a museum in Des Moines, Iowa called the History Building.
Yeah, I thought I'd read that.
It's in a vault. So it used to, this is the best story ever. It used to be at City Hall.
Right.
And so I go up to pay my water bill and I said, where'd the axe go? Because it was gone. And she goes, well, so-and-so traded it to so-and-so for a box of chocolate-covered cherries. And I was just like so dumbfounded. I said, okay. And I took a step and I thought, doesn't it belong to the Montgomery County Sheriff Department? It's a murder weapon and an unsolved crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Like who decides they own this? You know?
Yeah.
So they said it was the Villisca Historical Society, which does not exist at all. I would be in it if it existed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's some older lady who gave herself that title and took the axe, and it's in Des Moines in a vault, and no one can even see it.
But again, it's an historical piece of not equipment. That's the wrong word, isn't it? But it's an historical piece.
Yeah, it should be. It should I don't want it in the house ever again. It doesn't be in the house.
Yeah.
But it should be around here where people can see it that come see the house.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, no, I presume you get asked a lot that question, don't you?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
I
Where's the axe at?
I thought you would. Well, Johnny, we've been on nearly an hour. It's gone so quick. Honestly, I've really appreciated this, because this is the type of story me and my wife. This is what we kind of started the channel up for.
Nice.
You know, the true crimes, and to remember not the killers but the victims in all these stories. Exactly. It's always about the victims, and sometimes they're hard to discuss. I appreciate that, because even though I keep saying I'm trying not to glorify what happened, we've still got to talk about how it happened and what happened. Because if we don't, I kind of think it diminishes the story, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So as graphic as it is, I always believe we still have to talk about what happened. But it's always about the victims, isn't it? It's never about the killer.
Right.
So I've really appreciated you're spending an hour of your time today coming chatting to us. I think our viewers will absolutely love what you've done for us. They'll appreciate it. I'm hoping they'll look into the story themselves after this.
Absolutely.
You might get bombarded yourself in the next few days and weeks with emails and all kinds of stuff.
Figure out who did it and let me know.
What I'll do, I will put all your links down below to the Axe Murder House website. I'm sure I'm following you on Instagram. Yep. But I'll put all your socials down, and I won't put anything personal, any email addresses, but just social media and obviously website and any YouTube channels. You're also on Amazon Prime, aren't you?
Yes.
yes. I started watching.
Oh no.
I started watching because I obviously this interview that were coming out. I thought, right, let's do my homework on Johnny HOUSER and see what he's up to. So I'm not a stalker, but I've been trying to get some background information. But
so Nick Groff from Ghost Adventures, you need to do some live broadcast from the Axe House.
Yeah.
So I did it for his platform.
Right.
And I thought it was just going to be one and done, just live, that nobody will ever see it again. Then he put it on Amazon. I'm like, I would have put way more effort into this if I knew.
Seriously, they're very good. They're very good. Honestly, they're enjoyable. They're a lot better than some of this rubbish that's on there now on the platform. Honestly,
what I'll appreciate it.
I will honestly put links down to all these platforms that you're on, and obviously the house itself, and we'll get people coming over. We're not the biggest channel, but we are growing, and obviously we're enjoying what we're doing, and people seem to be enjoying what we're doing as well. So, but yeah, honestly, Johnny, I can't thank you enough. Seriously, it's an interesting story. It's a fascinating one, and it's going to rumble on, I think, for many more years, this story. And like you say, whether or not the truth's ever out, I doubt it will ever come out. But the mystique is there, isn't it? The story's there, and it will always be there.
Right.
So thank you very much, Johnny. I'm going to end the chat now, but I'm not going to disappear. Obviously, I'll chat to you a few more seconds, but we'll end it now. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yep.